Hi, in this video we are going to talk about how to crack Snap. Let's get started. Firstly, let's understand the Snap pattern. So in the last few years, Snap has not changed its pattern too much. If you look at the sections, the first section that you have is General English, the second is Analytical and Logical Reasoning, and the third section is Quantitative, Data Interpretation and Data Sufficiency. The number of questions in each of these sections are 15, 25 and 20 respectively. Now, going by the last few years' level of difficulty, verbal or general English can be termed as overall easy. If you look at the analytical and logical reasoning, that can be termed as easy to medium. Whereas when it comes to quant, you'll have to call it medium difficulty. In terms of what is a good attempt, out of 15, if you have attempted anywhere between 12 to 13 questions on the verbal section, that's considered a good attempt. For analytical and logical reasoning, that figure is around 20-21. And for quant, that figure is around 14-15. Of course, this also depends on the difficulty that you get on the actual test. When it comes to how much time you should be spending, the suggested time is about 12 to 14 minutes for the VRC, 24 to 26 for the analytical section, and 20-22 for the quant section. Also keep in mind that there is going to be negative marking on the test. So the marking scheme is +1 for a right answer and -0.25 for an incorrect answer. Now, what we have observed is, if you look at the 3 slots that are there for the Snap, there is going to be some fluctuations in the difficulty of the test. However, as Snap has already mentioned on their website, and what they have done in the past is they don't normalize, which means that your best raw score from slot 1, slot 2 and slot 3 is taken into account for the percentile calculation. Also, we'll be looking at the score versus percentile to understand what score you should be targeting. So what you are seeing on screen is score versus percentile distribution for Snap 22. Now look at the score of 47. It corresponded to 99.99 last year. But if you look at the previous years of Snap, let's say Snap 2020 or 21, a score of 51 corresponded to 99.99. So this particular distribution is going to be different. It depends a lot on the difficulty of the test. But one thing that you need to be aware of is that with respect to Snap, and this is something that we have observed every single year, is the difference of 1 mark can create a lot of difference in your percentile. For example, that difference is not felt a lot at the top, but it is felt in the middle order. For example, look at a score of 35. Last year that corresponded to 97.45. A score of 34, just 1 mark less, corresponded to 96.48. If you go further down, look at, for example, a score of 28, which corresponded to 84 percentile, whereas 27 corresponded to 80 percentile. So even a difference of 1 mark is going to create a lot of difference to your percentile. And that is why every single mark is going to be crucial. Your speed and accuracy both are going to matter a lot in deciding how many questions you are able to attempt and how many of those you get correct. And that ultimately will determine your score. So let's talk about areas to focus on. I'll start with general English. So within English, the 2 things that are tested the most is going to be grammar and vocabulary. Starting with active-passive voice conversion, figures of speech, fill in the blanks, whether it is tense-based, spelling-based or conjunction-based. In addition to that, phrases and idioms always make an appearance, along with synonyms and antonyms. And the last thing that you should be focusing on is going to be the odd word out. For the analytical and logical reasoning section, it is complete mixed bag. So you have pretty much all the question types that can make an appearance, whether it is verbal reasoning or non-verbal reasoning. Starting from syllogisms, course of actions, assumption, conclusion, argument, analogy, series, logical puzzles, clocks and calendars, family tree, and the whole thing. So we'll be talking about the individual sections also as to what kind of questions appeared in the last year's Snap. And with respect to the quantitative section, of course, it's the entire thing, which is arithmetic, modern math, geometry, numbers, algebra. We'll be talking about the number of questions that we saw last year. So let's start with the composition of last year's paper. So in the first slot, there were 2 questions from compound word, for example, anywhere. Grammar, there were 5 questions, and these were fill in the blanks and identifying the correct sentence. Synonyms, there was only 1 question that made an appearance, but in the previous years, we have seen more questions of synonyms and antonyms. There was a question on poem. Don't worry, they are not going to be asking you very difficult questions on this. And spelling based, there was 1 question. There was also 1 question on assertive statement and 4 questions on tenses, speech, prefix and proverb based. With respect to the analytical and logical reasoning section, as I mentioned some time back, that it is going to be a complete mixed bag and you cannot really leave a particular area altogether. because one or two questions can appear from pretty much all the areas that are there. As you can see from the screen, statement and assumption, there were two questions. Strong, weak arguments, one question. So you cannot say that I'm not going to practice critical reasoning. Syllogisms, strengthening and weakening arguments, course of action, decision making, all sorts of questions can appear. Talking about the other areas, you can get questions from series, clocks and calendars, arrangements, directions, family tree, sequential output, and binary logic. So I would suggest that you practice concepts from all these areas. Do not leave a particular area altogether. And when it comes to the final section, quantitative DI and DS, there were 6 questions from arithmetic in last year's slot 1. From modern mathematics, there were 5 questions, which is permutation, combination, and probability. Geometry, there were 3 questions, numbers 2, algebra 2, and data interpretation 2 as well. Now the composition can always change. So previously we have seen that there were 4 questions of data interpretation. So you can expect to have anything between 2 to 4 questions on DI. Don't worry, the questions will not be very difficult. As long as you know your percentages and ratios well, you should be able to solve any DI set that appear on the snap. But for other areas, the difficulty level varies a lot. You can get a few questions that are extremely straightforward and easy, but there will be some questions that can be medium to difficult level. So now you must be wondering, how should I prepare for the test? So I'm going to talk about the resources and the overall test taking and the preparation strategy. The first thing that I want you to focus on is going to be the full length test. SNAP is a speed-based exam, 60 minutes, 60 questions. So it's a completely speed-based test. So that is why you have to get used to the format. You have to adapt to it. So that is why if you take the 10 mocks that we are offering you, it will give you enough practice that is required before the test. If you're somebody who is going to take multiple attempts at SNAP, so let's say you're going to take SNAP 1, 2 and 3, all of them, or maybe SNAP 1 and SNAP 3. What I would suggest you is to take about 5 to 6 mocks before your first attempt and keep the remaining for the next attempt. If you're planning to take only one attempt, obviously you will end up taking all 10 mocks prior to that. The next thing I'll suggest you to focus on is going to be the 20 ADMAT masterclasses that we have. Now these 20 ADMAT masterclasses, and for all of these you have the video solutions as well. Once you go through these, you will know how to solve these questions in a very quick manner. Because these questions deal with the difficulty that you're going to have on the SNAP and some of the other exams as well. So once you go through the 20 ADMAT masterclasses, you will have enough exposure of the different question types that are asked on the SNAP. If you're a CAT student, I would also want you to look at the module 5 of the CAT courseware. It gives you all the theory, solved examples and the practice exercises that are required for the SNAP. If you are somebody who is an NMAT SNAP CET or an NMAT SNAP CMAT student with us, then of course your material has already taken care of the difficulty that you're going to get on the SNAP. So you need not do anything special apart from the 20 ADMAT masterclasses that I spoke about. I would also encourage you to have a look at the past SNAP papers. Now SNAP used to be a paper pencil test at a point of time and they used to release the paper in the public domain. Even when it became online, for a few years they actually released the paper. So whatever is available in public domain, we have converted that to PDF and given access to you. So that is the access path that you can see on screen. You go to My IMS, Resources, Past Papers, and there you will find some of the SNAP past papers. Some of these papers have the GK section. You can ignore it for the moment. Finally, I'm going to talk about the test taking strategy. SNAP, as I said, is a speed-based test, so you have to have a strategy. What I would suggest is you decide the section order in which you want to solve the test. For example, it could be VRC followed by Quant followed by the logical reasoning section. For somebody else, the order could be different. So start with the strongest section that you have and then also be ready in case there are any specific situations where you have to change that strategy. For example, what if a certain section comes out to be very difficult? Then you will have to move to some other section and then try to crack it at the earliest. I'll also suggest you that you follow a round system. What I mean by that is, let's say you start with the VRC section. In the first 5 to 6 minutes, solve all the easy questions. Then you go to say Quant and then spend maybe 10-15 minutes, solve all the easy questions. Then you go to logic, again follow the same process. By the end of 30-35 minutes, maybe you must have solved around 30-35 questions that are easy. And then you spend the remaining time going to the individual sections again and then trying to solve the moderate or the difficult ones. This will ensure that you are at least solving all the easy questions from the test. And as I said earlier as well, speed and accuracy, both are going to be extremely important. If you solve all the questions very quickly, but your accuracy is the problem, you're not going to get a good score. At the same time, if you solve only 30-35 questions with very good accuracy as well, you might not be able to get the desired score. So that is why find that balance between speed and accuracy both, and I'm sure you'll be able to crack the test. I hope you found this video useful. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it right away. Thank you so much for watching. Wish all of you all the best. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Once again, all the best to all of you.